Hello, I'm Dr. Todd Cielo with DXD Software. I've been practicing in Tampa, Florida since 1998. In our practices, we're always dealing with two types of findings, subjective findings and objective findings. Anytime we have those two types of aspects of our practice, we need to be able to document those in our SOAP notes, in our initial report, and in our final report. Today, I'm going to be going over how we can do that from a diagnostic standpoint, and more importantly, from a medico-legal standpoint. The objectivity that we're going to be talking about is George's line. We all remember George's line. There's 4 reasons why George's line is broken. Not basic reasons, 4 very specific reasons that have been around since 1919. Fracture, dislocation, degenerative change, and ligament laxity. A fracture dislocation is going to be ruled out in the MRI with advanced imaging. So then we're left with 2. Posterior osteophytes, arthritis that's going back on the vertebral bodies, which is a false break in George's line. The only way we know if it's a true break is that we have to do 2 movements. Flexion and extension. Once we see the bone move, then we plot points of anatomy, and then we measure that to 0.01 degrees of accuracy per the AMA guidelines. I'm going to be showing you how I utilize the AMA guidelines in my own practice with a chiropractic flair. The #1 value driver in all of personal injury is a diagnosis. Ligament laxity. I want you to write this one down. M24.28. There's a few benefits utilizing this code. You can treat the patient longer. It's a value driver. It's an objective finding. And there's 51 severity points in every insurance claim. Examples are contusion, sleep disturbance, subluxation, headache, sprain strain. For every 5% of an impairment rating is 1 severity point. The more severity points, the more the claim is worth. Simple math. We were taught in school subluxations. I utilize subluxations in my office all the time, but the AMA guidelines values 4 and only 4 subluxations. Anterior listhesis, retrolisthesis, flexion, and extension. And they love these 4, and they recognize these 4, and they value these 4 for only one reason. Linear imaging, linear movement. Therefore, it's not coupled. It's either flexion or it's extension. Therefore, if the bone moves, there's no malingering, it cannot be faked. Either the bone moves or does not. And then we get a measurement, and we correlate that with the AMA guidelines. During these personal injury claims, the attorney attached to the case wants to know one thing. Can you relay this information to a juror? Those 6 jurors have no idea about anatomy. They don't know anything about measurements, especially in millimeters. The everyday person doesn't know anything, and they've never seen it. But you have to utilize something that they know, touch, and feel all the time. A quarter. The height of a quarter is 1.75 millimeters. If you put 2 quarters on top of each other, that's 3.5, and that's what the AMA guideline recognizes. If the bone is traveled anterior to posterior more than 3.5 millimeters, it's an impairment rating of 25%, and that's with a negative MRI. Did you hear that? If it moves 3.5 millimeters or 11 degrees with a negative MRI, it could be a 25% impairment rating per the AMA guidelines. The 6th edition of the AMA guidelines states, flexion extension x-rays, stress views, provide useful information of AOMSI, alteration of motion segment integrity. Fancy word for ligament laxity. 5th edition, dominant motions of the cervical and lumbar spine, where most clinical pathology occurs, flexion extension. Says the same thing. There's 2 words in our office that every doctor should understand. More importantly, you should be able to understand to relay this information in your SOAP notes in your initial report. It's medical necessity. Medical necessity means reasonable, appropriate, necessary in order to go to the next academic step based upon signs, symptoms, initial consult, patient presentation, imaging, advanced imaging, past imaging. You have to be able to relay all that information on your initial report. So the entire world, especially the insurance company, knows what your mindset is for the future care of this patient. One of the most important aspects of dealing with SOAP notes is a paper trail. Extremely important. So I put in my recommendation column stress views. in the cervical and lumbar region is reasonable, appropriate, and necessary due to patient presentation, signs, and symptoms. This will allow translation and angulation of the ligament laxity to be quantified and correlated with the AMA guidelines, MRI findings, and patient symptoms. In the 90s, when we were taught George's line, and to quantify the movement of a bone, we utilized the plastic protractor and the slide rule with a lead pencil. The error rate on that is 26%. So we have to be extremely accurate and detailed per the AMA guidelines, and they want 0.01 degrees of accuracy. The only thing that's going to do that is a computer. The defense will always challenge you on your opinion, your SOAP notes, and more importantly, how you're quantifying or measuring and documenting an impairment rating. So the defense will always ask me, Dr. Cielo, is it possible that these ligament laxity injuries came from something prior, like a sports-related accident or another motor vehicle accident? And I simply say, no, it's not possible. The loss of motion segment integrity is rare unless accompanied by severe trauma. And the motion of these segments cannot be determined by physical exam. So the motion palpation, you cannot quantify and you cannot document any type of hypermobility. The key here is hypermobility, measuring it per 0.01 degrees of accuracy. The number one value driver in all personal injury is a diagnosis. I want you to look in the 6th edition of the AMA guidelines, page 23, bottom left-hand corner. The guides is only value if the medical diagnosis is correct. I really want you to listen here. An incorrect diagnosis leads to an incorrect impairment rating. The most important element of the guides remains the physician's accurate diagnosis. If your diagnosis is incorrect, your impairment is incorrect. Very important. The number 2 value driver in all of personal injury is an impairment rating. If the guides provides more than one method to rate a particular impairment or condition, the method producing the higher rating must be used. Meaning, if your patient was in another doctor's office, whether it's a DC or an MD, and they gave an impairment rating between, say, 6 and 10%, and you utilize the AMA guidelines for AOMSI and you got 25%, yours must be utilized because yours is the higher rating. You just use a different methodology. Our end goal as physicians is to provide an impairment rating. The end goal for the AMA guidelines is to assist legal and other systems to calculate compensation through your impairment rating. So it's very crucial to have an accurate impairment rating from an objective standpoint, not a subjective standpoint. I created DXD software for a few reasons. The number one reason that I created it is for objectivity, to increase the credibility of our chiropractic profession. On George's line, which no one on the planet knows more about as subluxation than a chiropractor. The most important part about DXD software, though, is the first 5 pages of the addendum. It talks about medical necessity and description of procedure. 2 very important aspects of telling the insurance company why you did it and the description of the procedure of why they should reimburse you. The ROI on DXD is anywhere from 3-to-1 return on investment to 20-to-1 return on investment. The more reports you do, the cheaper the reports are, and the bigger, higher return is for you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this presentation. Please give me a call or email me if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.